All right, let's just jump right in. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're cracking open the archives of a collapsed historical regime. And honestly, the parallels to today are pretty wild. We're looking at a fascinating text called The Inquisitor and the Jester. We're going to use it to figure out exactly how the psychological architecture of modern, failing organizations just crumbles from the inside out. I mean, if you've ever worked somewhere where the culture felt like a total illusion, where the mission statement is basically just a fancy poster covering up a massive hole in the wall, well, this archival analysis is absolutely going to hit home for you.
So we start off with this incredibly chilling fragment from the recovered records. The Inquisitor stands as the rigid pillar of sanity appointed to document the structural rot. That just perfectly sets the stage for what is honestly an intense psychological journey into a system completely consumed by its own performance. We meet the Inquisitor, and he's not just some random guy watching from the sidelines. No, he is the officially appointed guardian of consensus reality. In modern terms, he's basically the guy hired by the board to assure everybody that, hey, everything is totally fine. But his actual job, documenting the structural rot of a dying kingdom. It's a really profound starting point, mostly because it mirrors exactly how failing institutions try to manage their own decay.
Now, right at the heart of this grim Gothic fable is this devastating mechanism known as an ontological audit. Now, this is not your standard financial review. Not at all. This is a systematic, rigorous verification of whether a system's reality actually exists or if it's just a completely hollow facade. It's designed to expose the void lurking right behind a culture's invisible agreements. You know those unspoken rules that literally everyone follows just to pretend everything's fine while the ship is actively sinking?
What's fascinating is how these archaic, historical figures map so perfectly onto the anatomy of a modern megacorporation on the verge of collapse. It's the psychological friction between them that really drives this whole thing. On one side, you have the Inquisitor. Think of him as the cynical corporate auditor, brought in to verify substantive reality while fiercely protecting the throne. And opposing him? The Jester. He's your classic disruptive whistleblower. He's leaning right against that structural rot, practically kicking the walls to see if they'll hold. These aren't just opposing forces. They are two individuals trapped inside a failing organization, hurtling toward a totally inevitable collision.
Okay, so our narrative kicks off with the Inquisitor emerging from what the text calls the mechanical performance of order. The entire kingdom is essentially trapped in this semantic paralysis. Imagine a corporate culture where everyone keeps repeating a word like synergy, but nobody actually has a clue what it means anymore. Everyone's just blindly going through the motions. Well, the Inquisitor steps in as a philological specialist in these invisible agreements. He's not there to fix the broken culture, he's just there to manage the vocabulary of its decline. He walks right into this environment of paralyzed meaning, specifically to confront the Jester's wager.
So, what exactly is our Inquisitor looking for here? Well, his assessment of the kingdom's so-called decency is intensely philosophical. He's asking the big questions. Is this decency actually a true vessel of virtue? Or has it just become this hollow signifier that devoured the signified? Basically, is it just an empty buzzword? He genuinely wants to figure out if the ceremonial bells actually ring at the exactly right moment for a real, tangible purpose, or if the whole system has just devolved into a series of nuisances without a cause. And man, through the recovered audio transcripts of their staged dialogue, you can just feel the friction. The Jester leans right in and challenges the whole system's sanity. He whispers, "The bells you hear are not ringing for the hours, Auditor. They are ringing for the rot." Wow. This is the ultimate whistleblower speaking truth to power, right? Completely refusing to play along with the kingdom's semantic paralysis. The Jester's wager is basically that the entire kingdom is just one massive illusion, and he's daring the Inquisitor to prove him wrong.
And the Inquisitor's response? It is ice cold. He fires back, "I am merely here to verify if your wager has substantive reality, fool. I measure the nuisance." The cynical auditor is just drawing this hard line in the sand. He is absolutely determined to stay detached, just a tool of the throne categorizing the rot. At this point, he genuinely thinks he's immune to the collapse. He figures he can just stand on the sidelines, clinically document the whistleblower's madness, and walk away totally unchanged. But as we're about to see, you can't really audit the void without the void auditing you back. Which brings us to the absolute core of this explainer, the Inquisitor's intense internal shift. Because this isn't just some routine compliance check anymore, it turns into this profound journey of personal discovery and psychological unraveling. He starts out as this confident, rigid pillar of sanity, but by the middle of the text, as he inches closer to the truth, he morphs into the uncanny guest, facing what they call an ocular confession. And by the end, his psychological armor completely shatters. He transforms into the honest witness, fully claimed by the exact same void he was hired to measure.
So how does that transformation actually happen? It goes down within the royal halls, where a mirror basically refracts the jester and the inquisitor. This ocular confession completely shatters the painted surface of their assigned roles. It's exactly like that horrible moment when a corporate employee suddenly realizes, wait, I'm not just an observer here, I'm part of the problem. They are suddenly refracted into the uncanny guest and the uncanny witness. The brilliant light of the uncanny just dissolves that semantic veil between the person disrupting things and the person observing them. The inquisitor finally realizes he is no longer just a tool of the throne, he is an active participant in this ontological audit. And you have to wonder, how does this massive internal shift impact the wider organization? Well, it starts as just the jester's solitary performance disrupting the status quo. But then, the inquisitor's mere presence, his quiet, undeniable observation, it transforms that solitary disruption into an undeniable truth. The weight of this combined reality basically forces an institutional reckoning. Suddenly, the High Minister, who's essentially the kingdom's CEO, is facing a massive communal ontological audit, and it's one he absolutely cannot brush under the rug anymore.
As the jester and the auditor step into the staged phonology of the kingdom's grief, which is basically a highly performative display of corporate sorrow, the jester forces the whole court to confront reality. He yells at them to look past their painted heights of digital virtue. Which, by the way, is a shockingly modern phrase to find in a historical archive, right? But it still perfectly captures the performative PR of a failing company. He points straight to the void within the marketplace, and the parasite hiding behind the gilded shelves. The whistleblower is literally tearing down the decorations to show everyone the rotting foundation underneath.
And the auditor, who is now holding his certain breath right alongside the fool, experiences this massive psychological shift. He admits the whole pretense of sorrow is broken. The mechanical performance of the court is fully exposed as a joke half told. Now acting as the uncanny witness, his sheer presence is what stops the bereaved populace from just writing off the jester's laughter as crazy talk. He forces them to look, and I mean really look, deeply into the suppressed stone of truths that they had all collectively refused to hold.
So, the facade of the kingdom is completely stripped away. That staged phonology of grief? Gone. The painted heights of digital virtue? Also gone. And what takes their place? The realized truth, translated by our honest witness. A purely performative death transforms into a realized truth. The fake digital virtue gives way to that suppressed stone of hard realities. And those invisible agreements, the fragile, broken culture that was propping up the throne, they finally, inevitably collapse under the documented weight of their own hollowness. The populace literally has nowhere left to hide.
This brings us to the totally devastating climax of the Inquisitor's personal journey. Now that the first mirror has shattered the blind faith they've all sown, rather than just reflecting it, the Inquisitor realizes the truth. He is an active participant pushing against the architecture of consensus reality. His presence fully merges with the jester into this singular, genuine weight. The observer has been definitively claimed by the very void he was meant to categorize. There's no going back. He simply cannot unsee the hollow sham.
And by validating the whistleblower's claims, this honest witness accomplishes something truly monumental. By officially going on the record and witnessing the parasite behind the gilded shelves, he completely strips away the kingdom's last shred of deniability. Documenting the void within the marketplace proves, once and for all, that their entire civilization is built upon a suppressed stone. This dual presence of both the jester and the auditor ensures that even if this dying kingdom feels absolutely nothing at all, its invisible agreements will still lean and eventually break entirely under the crushing, documented weight of their own hollowness.
Ultimately, it's the Inquisitor's meticulous archival documentation that completely changes the game. It turns the whistleblower's disruptive laugh into a permanent scripture of institutional collapse. Think about it. The jester could have easily been ignored as just a lone, crazy voice in the wilderness, but the cynical auditor, by confirming that the void is real, absolutely weaponizes that smile. He leaves the throne to rest upon the silence of a middle distance where nothing remains. The ontological audit is completely finished. The facade is utterly destroyed. As we finally close the archives on this profound explainer, I really want you to apply this to your own world. Seriously, ask yourself, what happens when the painted surface of your own organization is finally shattered by an honest witness? When your workplace's own invisible agreements face a real ontological audit, will your throne rest upon a suppressed stone of hard, honest truths? Or is it just going to fade away into the silence of a middle distance where nothing remains? Food for thought. Thanks so much for diving into the archives with me.